Now, Ted Malone, Westinghouse correspondent, recorded from overseas.
Hello there. This is Ted Malone, overseas. Night and day since the Runstead breakthrough on the Western Front, the people of southern England have heard the throbbing thunder of big four-engine bombers heading for the German lines. All night long, the RAF fills the sky. And all day long, the American 8th Air Force flying forts and liberators. Rain, fog, ice, and snow have not kept them on the ground. Thousands upon thousands of tons of bombs have been dropped on nasty lines and cities. And tonight, they're out again. This weekend up at the 381st Bomb Group with some of the largest and most dangerous missions of all being flown, about all the fellows talked about was the names of ships. There was old return ticket. It usually got punched, but it always came back. And Our Mom, there was the name. How'd the fellows have to call their ship Our Mom? Well, brother, that's what a ship is when you've flown her a few times. She's your mother. She takes care of you, takes you over through the flak and the fighters, and brings you back. Sometimes she gets hurt, bad hurt. 1, 2 engines are gone, stabilizers shot off. You can feel her throbbing, breathing heavy, but she won't give up. Stay with her, help her, guide her, and she'll bring you home. Our Mom. Good name. Good ship, too. Mighty good ship. Old Man Tucker's another. The crew named that for their old pilot, Lieutenant Allen F. Tucker from Hood River, Oregon. Flew his tour of mission and went home. He's back in the States now, I think. Tucker was all right. His crew was crazy about him. He was pilot on that first Schweinfurt raid, ball bearing factory. That raid was a doozy. No fighter protection in those days. Lost over 50, over 60, I think it was. 10 kids in every one. A lot of them bailed out, of course. Got down all right, I guess. But sitting up there in that glass-covered cockpit, seeing ships all around you crumpling up and going down in flames or suddenly exploding into a million pieces, kids you know flying alongside of you, kids you ate breakfast with, kids who slept in the barracks you did, got pictures of their wives stuck up on the wall by their bunks, funny little snapshots of babies they've never seen. Those kids flying right alongside of you, and all of a sudden their ship seems to stop. A wing tears off, and down they all go, spinning, whirling, and flaming smoke. Old Man Tucker saw all that on the mission to Schweinfurt. Ships all around him were shot down. He was hit, but he got back. Grounded him for a while, and he beat back the hard way. Did his first missions going as a tail gunner. Finally, they let him back in the cockpit, and he finished his missions, and they sent him home. His crew all loved him. Named their bomber after him. Old Man Tucker. Good Joe. Didn't there used to be a ship named Joe Mo? Yeah. Nobody ever could figure that one out till the pilot told us. Joe Mo. He said when he finished his tour of missions that he was through, he was going to change it. And he did. What is it now? No Mo. Lieutenant Colonel Charles L. Halsey of Long Beach, California, back in the States now, named his bomber the Los Angeles city limit. Said he'd seen signs like that all the way to San Francisco. Didn't see why one shouldn't be seen in the neighborhood of Berlin. And he took it there. But he must not like the country over there. He brought it back. Mizpah is the ship of the record, 104 missions. There's a poem named Mizpah. Yeah, I think that's where it comes from. An interesting crew, serious fellas. Always had a little prayer from everybody on the inner phone system just for takeoff. 104 missions. Pretty good. Their tail gunner flew an extra mission on another ship. He was shot down, so they named their bomber for him, Mizpah. May God keep watch between thee and me till we meet again. Did you ever hear the bomber called Rotherhithe's Revenge? Rotherhithe's Revenge. How do you spell it? R-E-V-E-N-G-E? Oh, Rotherhithe. How do you spell Rotherhithe? Oh, I wouldn't have any idea. That's British, like Cirencester, Festiniog, or Guadalajara. Rotherhithe. Colonel Shackley will tell you the story. He's flown the ship. He was here when the ship was christened. And later on, when I found the colonel, he told me the story. And because it's a little different from most of the others, in fact, much different than any I've heard, I want to tell you the story as the colonel told it to me the other night at the bomber base. So while I hunt up the chap I've been looking for ever since last April when I came overseas, a word from Westinghouse in New York.
To some of us in radio, it's hard to believe that George and Annie Shackley's young hopeful can be a colonel, while the last time we saw him, he was a mere infant. But then 1945 is an infant, too. Yet the remaining 357 days of 1945 are fateful days. calling upon our utmost energy for the final sprint to victory. Of course, it's only human to anticipate the peaceful days ahead, the return of our loved ones, and the beginning of the post-war era in which there'll be many new pleasures and conveniences. And so, men of Westinghouse, though busily engaged in producing vast quantities of radio and electronic equipment for war, nevertheless are anticipating the day when their great experience in the fields of radio and television may be directed toward increasing your entertainment at home. When that happy day arrives, the name Westinghouse will be your guide to radio and television sets of unexcelled quality, performance, and beauty. Pioneer of the world's first broadcasting station and the first factory-built radios for home use, true it is that radio's first name is Westinghouse. Now, back to Ted Malone, overseas.
Rotherhithe's Revenge is the name of a flying fortress christened by a community called Rotherhithe in the Bermondsey section of East London. It purchased its own bombers to revenge the 1940-41 Nazi Blitz that wiped out most of its homes. But maybe I'm getting ahead of my story. It really begins with my finding Colonel Shackley. The last program on which I had a part back in the States was a half hour of words and music broadcast from 11:30 until 12 my last Saturday night. The organist was the well-known musician, composer, and arranger George Shackley. Knowing that I was planning on coming overseas, he said, "Ted, I suppose a lot of people have asked this, and I don't want to be a bother, but I have a boy over there I'm pretty proud of. He's a lieutenant colonel somewhere in the 8th Air Force. Look him up, will you? And tell him to be careful." It so happened that the colonel was just starting home on leave about the time I arrived, and so we missed each other. Returning overseas, he was this time instructed to find me. This weekend, up at the bomber base, 8 months late, we met. And he can't spell Rotherhithe either. But he was glad to tell the story of Rotherhithe's Revenge, and to make it complete, he called in some others, a Major George Sandman of Stockton, California, Major Ernest Murray from Fort Worth, and a Sergeant Jesse Hyten, who hails from Montgomery County, Arkansas. By the way, I don't think I mentioned Colonel Shackley is from West Milford, New Jersey. That's very important. Somebody did a story on George and quoted him as from Greenwood Lake, which it seems annoyed his neighbors no end. I asked him how he could possibly have disowned West Milford, and the only reason he could think of offhand was that Nick Kinney, the New York columnist, had just moved out there. We're only kidding, Uncle Nick, of course. Which reminds me, when the colonel came over, Nick did a short story for the paper about Shackley's dog, Meatball, which he brought overseas with him. You can do a longer story now, Nicholas. Meatball has littered up the airbase with 17 pups. If this keeps up, the colonel's quarters, as well as rations, will go to the dogs. Major George Sandman, pilot of Rotherhithe's Revenge, has been overseas only a week over a year, although it sounds like 3 and seems like 10. His first bombing mission was the last day of 1943. He flew 27 more in 44, and his most recent raid was in 45. 43, 44, 45. 3 years, any way you all count it, according to Sergeant Hyten, crew chief of the Rotherhithe bomber. Jesse, the wiry, leather-faced, black-haired engineer, has an Arkansas drawl so broad that he has to stand his words on edge to get them out. Major Murray, engineering officer at the base, assigned Rotherhithe's Revenge to Sergeant Hyten's ground crew even before Colonel Shackley and Major Sandman flew their first mission in it. And when Hyten blinks his bright black eyes and says, "Everything is fitting, sir," they know everything is fitting. Jesse's flown with them on test hops, trial runs. They came buzzing back once with a carton full of ice cream. But nobody would tell me where the ice cream came from. That, apparently, was a military secret, and a military secret it remains. With Sergeant Hyten as crew chief, Rotherhithe's Revenge has never once had any trouble. That is, never any mechanical trouble. It's had its share and plenty of enemy opposition. One time the ship came home with 125 flak holes in it, and 4 times the number 4 engine has been shot out. The Nazis hit that number 4 engine so regularly, Jesse Hyten told the pilots he was thinking of moving it out about 4 feet further on the wing. The most outrigged ship on the field, the hardest to fly. But let someone speak one word against it. It's a favorite of them all. Proudest, of course, of Rotherhithe's Revenge are the people of Bermondsey, the ones who bought it. Not really, of course, although some of the fellows think they did. It all happened during a British bond drive when, like we often do back in the States, a quota was set for each community in which it was asked to buy enough bonds to raise enough money to buy a bomber. Most of the English towns and villages chose English ships, Lancasters and Halifaxes as their quotas. But the people of Bermondsey decided they wanted a flying fort. They oversubscribed their quota with enough to pay for 3, which was all very good, and pleased the exchequer and the campaign leader, and most of all, the villagers. But then came the problem. The people wanted to see the new bombers they had bought. This, apparently, no one had anticipated, and 3 new bombers aren't always on hand. But the fellows at the base arose to the occasion, shined up a new one of their own, and flew in 2 more, and invited the community in to see their new bombers. The people came, hundreds of them, and that wasn't all. They came prepared to christen the bombers, do things upright, and do them they did. 3 bottles of rare Bermondsey ale were brought to the occasion, and the town officials decked out in high hats and formal clothes. True, they traded the ale for Coca-Colas at the last minute, but the town father's speeches went off as planned, and they must have planned a long time, as the speeches were that way. But nobody blamed them. There was a lot to be said. Back of the picnic spirit celebrating the bond drive, there was something surprisingly moving few had foreseen. There was a reason Bermondsey had greatly oversubscribed its quota. There was a reason they wanted to see and touch the bombers they had bought. When the fire and bomb blitz of 41 exploded on London, the people of Rotherhithe and Bermondsey suffered perhaps most deeply of all. Living along the dock sections, their homes had been smashed night after night by bombing. Hardly one home stood when the raids finally ended. Hundreds and hundreds of their friends and neighbors had been killed in the blitz. The people of Bermondsey wanted a chance to fight back against the Nazis. They found their chance in Rotherhithe's revenge. And so the story goes, down in what's left of this settlement in London, there on the walls of the splintered, broken, bomb-damaged homes of Bermondsey, there are blackboards and scoreboards in kitchens and living rooms. And every time their bombers go on a mission, the people of Bermondsey mark it up on a wall. If this is true, there must be at least 2 big, broad tally marks with stars to give them extra significance, because twice their personal bomber has led the whole 8th Air Force in raids on Berlin. 2,000 bomber raids over Berlin. Rotherhithe's revenge. This is Ted Malone overseas, wishing you top of the evening and returning you to New York and Westinghouse.
2,000 bomber raids over Berlin. What an accumulation of experience that represents. And there's no substitute for experience, because only through experience is perfection achieved. So when we tell you that Westinghouse first brought radio to the homes of America with the world's first broadcasting station, that Westinghouse was the first to offer factory-built radios for home use, we believe you'll agree that radio's first name is Westinghouse. In manufacturing vast quantities of radio and electronic equipment for war, Westinghouse has added greatly to its extensive peacetime radio experience. So, for better post-war entertainment, you can depend upon Westinghouse for the very last word in fine radio and television sets. If you would like a copy of Ted Malone's recorded shortwave broadcast for tonight, send your name and address to Westinghouse, Blue Network, New York 20, New York. Ted Malone comes to you at the same time every Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday with the best wishes of Westinghouse, leaders in everything electrical.